The night was quiet, yet not silent. The kind of quiet that leaves space for the sea to whisper, for the wind to hum, for the stars to gently shimmer above. On the far edge of the world, where the land met the rolling ocean, there stretched a long, endless shore. It was not the kind of place marked on maps. Ships did not sail here. No footprints lingered for long. It was a shore that seemed to exist only for those who needed it, only for those who wandered without knowing why. On this night, one such wanderer arrived. The traveler had no name that needed remembering, no past that needed weighing them down. They carried a small pack, though it seemed lighter than a feather. Their shoes were worn, softened by miles of unseen paths. Their eyes, however, were wide open, searching the horizon as though some secret waited there. Above the sea, the moon hung low and silver, spilling its light like a lantern across the restless waves. Each crest of water shimmered like liquid glass, breaking, folding, and fading into the sand. The traveler stood still for a long time, letting the rhythm of the waves wash through their chest, matching the uneven beat of their tired heart. They had been walking for days, or perhaps years. In dreams, time is uncertain, and though this night felt like a beginning, it was also an ending of something that came before. The traveler did not know why their feet had led them here, only that when they saw the great beam of light sweeping across the horizon, something inside them had stirred. At the far edge of the cliffs, half hidden in the mist, stood a lighthouse. Its tower rose tall and pale against the darkness, like a guardian keeping watch over both sea and sky. At its crown, the great lantern turned slowly, each revolution sending a gentle beam of gold across the waters. It was not the harsh, blinding light of ships' warning beacons, but a softer, more forgiving glow, warm, almost tender, as though it was not guiding sailors through storms, but dreamers through the silence of night. The traveler felt a pull. They took a step forward, their feet sinking lightly into the cool sand. The waves lapped against their ankles, retreating and returning as if trying to whisper secrets in the language of tides. The night air was sweet with salt, carrying with it a scent both ancient and familiar, like memories from childhood one cannot quite place. The traveler closed their eyes for a moment and listened. Beyond the hiss of the waves, there was something else, distant, steady, like the slow beating of a great heart. It was the pulse of the lighthouse, a rhythm in tune with the sea, in tune with sleep itself. They began to walk toward it. The path was not marked, yet it revealed itself with each step. A narrow trail wound upward, curling along the cliffside, lit by moonlight that seemed to follow the traveler closely, as if determined to guide them. The air grew cooler, carrying the faint cry of seabirds roosting among the rocks. The higher they climbed, the more the sea opened below them, stretching vast and endless, its horizon folding into the stars. The lighthouse stood taller now, its stone walls glistening faintly with moisture from the mist. Each time the lantern turned, its golden glow washed across the traveler's face, warming their skin like sunlight breaking through clouds. And then, as the path leveled, the traveler saw it clearly. The tower rose from the very bones of the earth, rooted in stone older than memory. At its base, a small cottage leaned against the structure, its windows glowing faintly, as though a hearth fire burned inside. Smoke curled lazily from a chimney, twisting into the night sky like a soft ribbon. The traveler paused at the wooden gate. Something about this place felt different, not just real, but necessary, as if the journey had always been leading here, even before it began. The air itself seemed gentler within the fence, and the sound of the sea softened into a lullaby. The traveler pushed open the gate. It did not creak or groan. It simply welcomed. The path inside was lined with smooth stones that glowed faintly under the moonlight. Lavender bushes grew on either side, their fragrance drifting into the night air. A cat, soft and gray, with eyes like drops of honey, sat quietly upon the path, watching the traveler with calm curiosity. It did not move, only flicked its tail once, as if in greeting. The traveler felt no fear, only a deep, quiet relief. At the cottage door, they raised a hand to knock. But before their knuckles touched the wood, the door opened gently, as though expecting them. Warm golden light spilled into the night, carrying with it the scent of baked bread and burning cedar. And in the doorway stood the keeper of the lighthouse. The keeper was not old, nor young. Not man, nor woman. Their presence was like the sea itself, endless, ageless, impossible to measure. Their hair shimmered faintly, as though dusted with the glow of the stars. Their eyes were calm, steady, and when they met the traveler's gaze, it was as though all the restlessness inside the wanderer had finally found a place to rest. "You've come," the keeper said, voice low and soft, like the hush of waves retreating from the sand. The traveler nodded. Words felt unnecessary here, almost too heavy to carry. The keeper stepped aside and gestured inward. "Come in. The night is long, but you need not face it alone." The traveler entered. Inside, the cottage was warm and simple. Wooden shelves lined the walls, filled with books whose spines bore no titles. A kettle steamed softly on the stove. A round table stood in the center, upon which rested a lantern, glowing gently with light that did not flicker like flame, but pulsed like a heartbeat. The keeper closed the door, and the sounds of the sea outside grew hushed, as if softened to a distant memory. "You've walked far," the keeper said, pouring steaming tea into 2 clay cups. "Few arrive at these shores unless the sea itself calls them. And fewer still find the path to the light." The traveler accepted the cup, holding it close. The warmth seeped into their fingers, into their chest, melting the weariness of the journey. "What is this place?" they asked at last, their voice barely above a whisper. The keeper smiled, though it was not the kind of smile meant to explain, but to reassure. "This," the keeper said, "is the Lighthouse of Dreams. It stands at the edge of waking and sleeping, guiding those who wander across the sea of sleep. Tonight, it has called you." The traveler looked toward the window, where the golden lantern's beam swept across the ocean. For the first time in what felt like years, they felt their heart begin to slow, each beat settling into rhythm with the waves. "Why me?" they asked softly. The keeper placed their cup upon the table, leaning back in the chair with a gaze as steady as the tide. "Because you are restless," they said simply. "And because all who are restless must, sooner or later, find their way to the light." The night deepened. The tea was warm. The silence between them was not heavy, but soothing. The traveler felt the weight of their eyelids pulling gently downward. And for the first time in a very long while, the thought of sleep did not frighten them. It felt like an invitation. Outside, the beam of the lighthouse turned, and turned again, sweeping across the sea of sleep, where countless dreamers drifted unseen. And in the keeper's quiet presence, the traveler understood, this was only the beginning. The cottage breathed with warmth. Its walls seemed to hum faintly, as if they too had been shaped by the sea and the passing of countless nights. The traveler sat at the small round table, hands wrapped around the clay cup, inhaling the steam of the tea that smelled of lavender and honey. The keeper sat across from them, still and serene, their presence filling the room in the way candlelight fills a dark space, quietly, yet completely. There was no sense of urgency in their movements, no sharpness in their voice. Every gesture, every word seemed to ripple outward with gentleness, like a pebble dropped into still water. The traveler found themselves staring at the lantern upon the table. Its glow was not of fire, nor oil, nor electricity. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt strangely familiar. A soft heartbeat, steady and patient. When they looked closer, they could almost see shapes inside it, tiny threads of light, weaving and unwinding, as though carrying the dreams of countless souls within their strands. "What is that?" the traveler asked, their voice hushed. The keeper followed their gaze. "That," they said softly, "is the dreamer's lantern. It burns not with flame, but with the light of journeys. Each soul that crosses the sea of sleep leaves a trace within it. Every heartbeat it carries is a dream making its way across the waters." The traveler blinked slowly, feeling the warmth of the lantern seep into their skin, into their breath. It seemed to quiet the last of their racing thoughts, pulling them into a rhythm they had almost forgotten how to follow. "The sea outside," the traveler began. "It feels different. Not like the seas I've known." The keeper's eyes softened, reflecting the glow of the lantern. "Because it is not the sea of the world," they said. "It is the sea of sleep. Few can see it, and fewer still are able to sail it. But it exists all the same, flowing endlessly beyond the horizon of waking. It is where dreams are born, where they drift, where they return when morning comes." The traveler sipped their tea, the warmth sliding down their throat like silk. The words of the keeper did not confuse them, though in another place, another time, they might have. Here, everything felt natural, as though they had always known it, but had simply forgotten. "And you?" the traveler asked. "You watch over it?" The keeper inclined their head slightly. "I guide," they replied. "When the waters grow restless, I steady them. When dreamers lose their way, I shine the beam to bring them back. The lighthouse does not command, nor control. It only reminds the lost where home is." They paused, and in the silence, the sound of the sea rose faintly through the cottage walls, a low, endless sigh. "There are nights when storms gather across the sea of sleep," the keeper continued, their voice steady as the tide. "Dreamers may wander too far, caught in tempests of fear or longing. It is in those nights the light is most needed. It does not push them away from the storm, but it shows them where safety lies. Some find it, others do not. But the light shines all the same." The traveler's eyes drifted to the window, where the great beam swept once more across the horizon. They imagined countless unseen boats, small and fragile, each carrying a dreamer through dark waters. They wondered if they too had been drifting there once, before arriving at this shore. And me? The traveler asked softly. Am I a dreamer? The keeper's gaze met theirs. For a moment, the room seemed to grow still, as though the world itself paused to listen. You are both dreamer and traveler, the keeper said. Your restlessness brought you to the edge of waking. Your feet carried you here. That is why the lighthouse called. The words settled into the traveler's chest like warm sand. For so long, they had walked without knowing why, carrying a weight they could not name. Yet here, the keeper spoke as though it had all been leading to this single truth. The tea was gone, though the cup still carried its lingering warmth. The traveler set it upon the table, their hands resting loosely in their lap. A silence unfolded between them, but it was not empty, it was full, alive, humming softly with the rhythm of waves and the glow of the lantern. Finally, the keeper rose. Come, they said. The traveler followed. They stepped outside into the night once more. The air was cool, touched with salt and mist, but not sharp. It wrapped gently around the skin, soothing rather than chilling. The stars above stretched endless, 1,000 soft lights woven into the dark tapestry of sky. The lighthouse towered beside them, its lantern sweeping with patient grace. Up close, its stone walls seemed alive, etched with tiny marks that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Each groove seemed like a story carved into its bones, stories of nights long past, of dreamers guided home. The keeper placed a hand against the stone. The light has burned since before memory, they said. And it will burn long after. It is not mine, nor anyone's to own. I only tended, as many before me have. One day, another will come to do the same. The traveler looked upward, watching the great lantern turn. And until then? The keeper smiled gently. Until then, the light remains. They began walking along the path that circled the tower. Each step was slow, unhurried. The traveler matched the keeper's pace, finding it oddly comforting, as though the ground itself moved with them. From the cliff's edge, the sea of sleep spread wide and endless. Its waters did not move like any ocean the traveler had known. They shimmered with colors too soft for names, silver, pearl, faint traces of violet and blue. Each wave rose and fell with a calm rhythm, as though the entire sea were breathing in its slumber. And upon it, faint lights drifted, lanterns, hundreds of them, scattered across the dark surface like stars fallen from the sky. Some bobbed gently near the shore, others floated far toward the horizon. Each one pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, like the lantern inside the cottage. The traveler's breath caught softly. What are they? The keeper's voice was no louder than the wind. Dreamers, they said. Each lantern is a vessel. Each glow, a soul adrift upon the waters. Some sleep peacefully. Some wander restlessly. All are carried by the sea, guided by the light. The traveler watched in silence. Something inside them shifted, a weight easing as they realized they were not alone. The world had always felt vast and isolating. But here, before the sea of sleep, they understood, countless others drifted too, carried by tides unseen. The keeper stood beside them, gaze steady upon the horizon. Tomorrow, they said softly, you will set sail as well. The traveler turned, startled. Me? The keeper nodded. The lighthouse has brought you here not only to rest, but to journey. There are dreams you must cross, waters you must sail, before peace can find you. Do not fear. The sea does not seek to harm. It only reflects what rests within. The traveler's heart beats slowly, steadily, in rhythm with the waves. For the first time in their wandering, they did not feel lost. They felt guided. They stood together in silence, watching the lanterns drift across the sea of sleep, each one a gentle heartbeat in the night. And above them, the lighthouse turned, casting its eternal glow across the waters, a promise that no dreamer would ever be fully lost. The night lingered like a soft veil, drawn gently across the world. The traveler and the keeper stood together on the cliff path, gazing at the horizon where the sea of sleep stretched wide and endless. Lanterns drifted upon its surface, their lights pulsing in time with unseen heartbeats. The traveler's chest rose and fell slowly, their breath deepening, as though the rhythm of the ocean was quietly teaching them how to breathe again. Each inhalation felt calmer. Each exhalation, lighter. The keeper, calm as the stone tower itself, spoke at last. "The sea is waiting for you." The traveler looked at them, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. "How can I sail it? I have no boat. No map." The keeper's lips curved in the faintest smile. "You do not need a map. The sea itself knows the way. And as for a boat, come." They walked along the narrow path that led downward, spiraling from the lighthouse cliff toward the hidden cove below. The sound of the sea grew louder, though not harsh. It was a steady hush, like the sigh of 1,000 dreamers sleeping peacefully. At last, the path opened to a quiet inlet. The water lapped softly at smooth black stones, shimmering with reflections of lantern light. There, tethered to a wooden post, was a small vessel. It was not like any boat the traveler had seen before. Its hull was smooth and pale, carved from wood that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Its shape was simple, yet graceful, as though it had been grown rather than built. At its bow hung a small lantern, glowing with the same pulse as the dreamer's lantern upon the cottage table. The traveler stepped closer, drawn by its soft light. The air around it felt calm, steady, like a lullaby one had known since childhood. "This will carry you," the keeper said, their voice as steady as the tide. "Each dreamer who comes to the shore finds their vessel waiting. It is not built with hands, but with need. The sea shapes it, ready for the one who must sail." The traveler touched the side of the boat, and warmth spread from their fingertips into their chest, as though the vessel itself recognized them. For the first time in years, perhaps lifetimes, they felt welcome. The keeper untied the rope with slow, deliberate movements. "The sea will show you much," they said. "Islands of memory. Currents of fear. Winds of longing. But remember, nothing here can break you. Dreams only reveal. And when the waters grow restless, the lighthouse will always be there to guide you home." The traveler swallowed, their throat tight with emotion they could not name. "And you?" they asked softly. "Will you stay?" The keeper placed a hand gently on the boat's bow. "I will remain with the light. It is my place. But the sea is yours to sail. Trust it. Trust yourself. When you return, I will be here." For a long moment, the traveler hesitated. They looked out at the lanterns bobbing on the sea, each one glowing faintly, each one a reminder that countless others drifted these waters too. And though the thought of leaving the shore filled them with quiet fear, there was something stronger beneath it, a pull, a call, the deep knowing that this was why they had come. They stepped into the boat. The wood shifted beneath their feet, not with the wobble of uncertainty, but with the steadiness of a cradle. They sat, their hands resting upon the smooth sides, and felt the boat respond, as though it were alive. The keeper pushed gently against the stern. The vessel drifted forward, gliding into the quiet shimmer of the cove. The traveler looked back. The keeper stood on the shore, their silhouette framed by the turning beam of the lighthouse above. They raised one hand, not in farewell, but in blessing. "Go," the keeper said, voice carrying easily across the water. "The sea is waiting." The traveler nodded, their chest warm with gratitude, and turned their gaze forward. The boat drifted beyond the cove, into the wide expanse of the Sea of Sleep. The water was unlike any the traveler had known. It did not crash or churn. It flowed with endless patience, each wave rising and falling like a slow breath. Its colors shifted constantly, silver, pearl, pale blue, faint violet, each hue blending into the next as though painted by the moon itself. Above, the stars shimmered brighter, reflected upon the surface of the sea until it seemed the traveler drifted through a sky of two horizons, one above, one below, both infinite. The lantern at the bow pulsed softly, casting a circle of golden glow around the boat. Wherever the light touched, the water shimmered with gentle clarity, showing glimpses beneath the surface. The traveler leaned over the side, peering into the depths. And there, drifting just below, were images. Not fish, not seaweed, but visions, memories perhaps, or fragments of forgotten dreams. A child's laughter, rippling like bubbles. A hand reaching out. A doorway half open, leading into some place unknown. Each fragment drifted by as though carried on currents too deep to follow. The traveler sat back slowly, their heart both heavy and light. The sea was not empty. It carried everything that had ever been dreamed, everything forgotten, everything longed for. And as the boat drifted farther, they felt themselves becoming part of it, no longer a stranger looking upon it, but a dreamer welcomed into its fold. The night deepened. The boat glided on. The traveler closed their eyes, listening to the water lap gently against the hull, listening to the soft pulse of the lantern. Their breath matched it, steady and calm, until they felt their body loosen, their mind drift. And as the first island began to rise faintly on the horizon, they whispered into the night, though no one was near to hear. "I am ready." The sea opened wide, stretching in every direction like an endless mirror. The traveler's little boat drifted steadily, guided not by oars or sails but by the rhythm of the water itself. The lantern at the bow pulsed softly, casting ripples of gold across the waves. For a long while, there was only the sound of water lapping against the hull and the soft sigh of the night breeze. The traveler let the stillness wash over them, every breath slowing, every thought loosening its grip. Then, one by one, the lights appeared. At first faint, like distant stars, they began to draw closer, dotting the surface of the Sea of Sleep. Lanterns, hundreds of them, drifted quietly across the water. Some glowed steady and bright, Others flickered faintly, as though tired from a long journey. Each one bobbed gently, moving with the currents as though carried by invisible hands. The traveler leaned forward, eyes wide. Each lantern was unique. One glowed a warm amber, another shimmered silver blue, another burned with a faint blush of rose. And as the boat glided past them, the traveler realized each light carried a story. When they peered into the nearest lantern, the glow deepened, revealing images within: a little boy asleep with a toy clutched to his chest, a woman sitting beneath a tree, reading a letter, an old man walking slowly through a field of golden grass. Each vision lasted only a moment before fading back into soft light. The traveler's breath caught softly. "Dreams," they whispered. The lanterns were not merely lights. They were vessels. They carried dreamers across the sea, some resting peacefully, some wandering through the deep folds of memory and imagination. The boat drifted closer to another. This one pulsed with a rhythm almost like laughter. Inside, the traveler glimpsed two children chasing fireflies, their joy spilling out like sparks into the night. A warmth filled the traveler's chest, as though the happiness of strangers could reach them across the water. Another lantern glowed dim, trembling faintly. Inside, the traveler saw a figure standing in a darkened room, waiting for someone who did not come. The vision lingered only a breath before fading, but the ache it carried settled gently in the traveler's heart. The boat moved on, passing lantern after lantern. Each light told its own quiet tale, brief as a sigh, fragile as dew. For the first time, the traveler felt the vastness of the sea of sleep not as emptiness, but as community. Countless souls drifted here, each carrying their own joys, their own sorrows, their own fragments of longing. None were truly alone. The traveler leaned back, closing their eyes. The glow of the lanterns shimmered softly across their face, and they felt as though they, too, were part of something greater. Their restlessness, the long miles walked, the endless search, it all seemed to quiet here, woven gently into the rhythm of the sea. A soft sound broke the stillness. The traveler opened their eyes. Ahead, one lantern drifted closer than the rest, pulsing brighter, as though drawn to the boat. Its light was pale blue, shimmering with a softness that seemed almost familiar. The traveler reached out. Their fingertips brushed the lantern's surface, and warmth flooded their hand. Images flickered to life inside it: a small home lit by a fire, a table set with bread and fruit, a voice humming an old lullaby. The scenes were not sharp, but blurred, like memories glimpsed through water. The traveler's chest tightened. Something deep inside stirred, an ache, a longing, as though they had once known this dream, or something like it. But before they could look longer, the lantern drifted away, carried gently by the current. Its pale glow faded into the distance, joining the hundreds of others across the water. The traveler let out a slow breath. The sea was showing them fragments, not to hold, but to understand. Each dream belonged not to them, but to those who sailed unseen beside them. The lantern at the bow pulsed gently, reminding them, their own journey still lay ahead. Time became soft, unmeasured. The traveler could not say how long they drifted among the lanterns. It could have been hours, or only minutes. The sea of sleep did not move in the same rhythm as waking life. Here, every moment stretched and folded, like waves rising and falling without end. The lanterns continued to glow, scattered across the water like constellations fallen from the sky. Some flickered faintly, their journeys nearing shore. Others shone bright, just beginning their passage. The traveler's boat moved steadily onward, carried deeper into the sea. And then, far on the horizon, the faint outline of an island appeared. Its shape was small and distant, rising from the water like a memory returning to the surface. The traveler leaned forward, heart quickening with quiet anticipation. The lantern at the bow pulsed brighter, as though in agreement. The sea of sleep was guiding them toward their first shore. The island grew slowly from the horizon, its edges shimmering in the soft glow of countless lanterns that still dotted the water behind. At first it seemed like only a shadow, a shape suspended between sea and sky, but as the traveler's boat drifted closer, the details began to emerge. Pale sands curved gently along the shore, untouched by footprints. Beyond them rose a grove of silver trees, their branches glistening as though dusted with frost, though the air was warm and still. High above, the branches swayed not with wind but with a rhythm all their own, as if they were breathing. The lantern at the bow pulsed brightly, urging the traveler forward. The boat touched the shore with barely a whisper. The traveler stepped onto the sand, their feet sinking softly, the ground cool yet welcoming. Behind them, the sea stretched endlessly, lanterns drifting like stars across its surface. Ahead, the silver trees beckoned, shimmering with light that seemed both real and imagined. The traveler paused, listening. The island was quiet, yet not silent. Beneath the stillness was a hum, a low vibration, like the sound of a heartbeat carried through the earth. It was steady, patient, and impossibly old. The traveler's steps left no mark as they walked toward the grove. As they entered the trees, light spilled softly through the branches, tinting the air with shades of pearl and violet. The trunks of the trees were smooth, their bark cool to the touch, and from each bough hung leaves that glowed faintly, as though they had been born from moonlight rather than soil. Deeper and deeper the traveler walked, until they reached the center of the grove. There, nestled in the roots of the largest tree, was a pool. Its water shimmered like glass, reflecting not the branches above but 1,000 scenes within. The traveler leaned closer, heart stirring with awe. Within the pool, dreams unfolded like petals. They saw a girl painting beneath the stars, her brush leaving trails of constellations across a canvas. They saw an old woman laughing with friends who had long since passed from waking life, her face alight with joy. They saw a child chasing a kite across rolling hills, the sky endless above. Every vision was alive, not illusions but true moments, dreams in motion, flowing like rivers within the pool. The traveler reached out, fingertips brushing the water's surface. The pool rippled, and one vision rose brighter than the rest. A boat. A sea. A child sitting alone at its bow, clutching a worn blanket. Their eyes scanned the horizon, wide with both fear and hope. The dream seemed fragile, trembling at the edges as though it might dissolve at any moment. The traveler felt the hum of the island deepen, resonating through their chest. The dream was calling. Without hesitation, they stepped forward. The pool's surface rose to meet them, light spilling upward in a rush of silver and violet. For a breathless instant, the traveler felt weightless, as though they were dissolving into mist. Then, with a sound like a sigh, the world shifted. The traveler found themselves standing on a small wooden deck, the boards creaking gently beneath their feet. All around stretched the same sea of sleep, though here it was darker, touched with shades of indigo and deep cobalt. Lanterns flickered faintly in the distance, but this part of the sea felt emptier, lonelier. At the bow of the boat sat the child from the vision, clutching their blanket tight. The traveler approached slowly. The child looked up, startled at first, but their wide eyes softened when they saw the traveler's gentle presence. No words were spoken, yet somehow, they understood each other. The traveler knelt, offering their hand. The child hesitated, then placed their small fingers in the traveler's palm. The moment their hands touched, the sea stirred. A current surged beneath the boat, carrying it forward. The child gasped, but the traveler held steady, keeping them safe. Ahead, the water brightened faintly, revealing an island on the horizon, a place the child had been searching for but had not been able to reach alone. The traveler understood, this was not their dream. It belonged to the child. They were only here to guide. The voyage was not without trial. Dark shapes moved beneath the water, shadows coiling like smoke. Fear rippled across the child's face, and the lantern at the bow flickered uncertainly. The traveler tightened their grip on the child's hand, focusing not on the shadows but on the horizon. Slowly, the fear ebbed. The shapes receded, vanishing into the deep. The boat pressed forward. When they finally reached the island, the child leapt onto the shore, dropping their blanket in excitement. Laughter rang out, clear and bright, as they ran into the arms of figures waiting there, family, friends, faces glowing with warmth. The child was no longer alone. The traveler stood quietly, watching. A deep peace filled their chest. When the child turned back, their eyes shone with gratitude. They waved once, smiling, before the dream dissolved into light. The traveler found themselves once again in the grove of silver trees, standing before the pool. The waters were still now, reflecting only the soft glow of the leaves above. They exhaled slowly. The island had shown them their first voyage, a dream they had been called to guide, not claim. The lantern at their side pulsed gently, its glow steadier, brighter than before. The traveler understood. This was their purpose. Not to chase their own rest, but to help others find theirs. The Sea of Sleep was not only a place of drifting, but of guiding. And so, with a quiet heart, the traveler prepared to continue their journey. The lantern glowed steadily in the traveler's hand as they left the silver grove behind. Its warmth guided them back through the forest, across the quiet sands, and onto the waiting boat. The Sea of Sleep stretched endlessly, as calm and luminous as ever. Yet tonight, the water carried a different current, one that tugged gently, insistently, as though urging the traveler toward a new destination. They loosened the sail, let the boat drift, and trusted the sea. At first, the voyage was silent, the only sound the faint ripple of water against the hull. But soon, as the horizon shimmered faintly with violet light, a sound drifted across the waves. It was soft at first, like a hum carried by the wind. The traveler leaned forward, listening. The notes grew clearer. A melody. A lullaby. The words were indistinct, blurred by time, but the tune was familiar, achingly familiar. It was a song they could not place, though it tugged at something deep within their chest. The lantern at the bow pulsed in rhythm, its glow rising and falling with the melody. The traveler's heart stirred. The sea was guiding them toward a place where music itself lived. At last, the island appeared. It was unlike any the traveler had seen before. Its shore was not sand but smooth stones that chimed softly when the waves touched them, creating 1,000 gentle notes. Beyond the shore, rolling meadows spread out, dotted with flowers that shimmered faintly like bells, their petals trembling with unseen harmonies. The air itself was alive with sound, gentle hums, soft echoes, and fragments of songs that seemed to drift freely, unattached to any source. The traveler stepped onto the shore. The stones beneath their feet resonated, releasing faint tones with every step, as though the island itself were greeting them in song. Deeper inland, the traveler followed the music. Through the meadows, the sound grew stronger, not only melodies but voices. Some sang brightly, like children chanting in play. Others were low and trembling, like old men whispering to themselves. Some were joyful, others sorrowful, but all blended into a great chorus that seemed endless. At the heart of the island stood a hill. Upon it grew a single, enormous tree, its trunk wide enough to house 100 travelers. From its branches hung strands of crystal-like fruit that glowed faintly, each one pulsing with light. As the traveler approached, they realized the crystals were not fruit at all, but vessels of sound. Each shimmered with a song, an echo of a voice long forgotten in the waking world. The shore of forgotten songs. The traveler stood beneath the great tree. One crystal pulsed brighter than the rest. Its glow trembled with urgency, as though it were calling out. The traveler reached up, brushing it gently with their fingertips. At once, the crystal sang. The melody spilled into the air, surrounding the traveler. A woman's voice, clear yet tinged with sorrow, sang words the traveler somehow understood. "Hush, little one, the night is kind. Close your eyes, leave fears behind. The stars will watch, the tide will keep. Drift away in gentle sleep." The traveler closed their eyes, letting the song wash over them. It was a lullaby. One that had once comforted a child, perhaps long ago, perhaps in another world. But here, in the sea of sleep, it had taken root, refusing to be lost. The tree hummed softly as if in approval. Suddenly, the air shifted. From the shadows of the meadow came a figure, a child, much like the one from the traveler's first voyage. But this child was different. Their face was pale, their eyes wide with longing. They approached slowly, drawn by the lullaby, their lips trembling as though they remembered the words but could no longer speak them. The traveler knelt, meeting the child's gaze. The lantern pulsed in their hand, brighter and brighter, until its light joined with the crystal above. The lullaby wove itself around them both, soothing the child's trembling form. Tears welled in the child's eyes. They whispered the final line of the song, their voice breaking, and then, like mist dissolving in the sun, they vanished, leaving behind only peace. The traveler exhaled slowly. Another dream had been guided, another soul carried closer to rest. As the traveler prepared to leave, they noticed something. The crystal they had touched no longer glowed. It had gone still, silent, its song released into the world once more. But at the same time, the lantern in the traveler's hand burned brighter, infused with the lullaby's memory. The traveler understood, every forgotten song, every guided dream, added to their light. The boat was waiting. The sea stretched on. And the chorus of the island faded softly behind them as they set sail again. The traveler's boat drifted once more across the sea of sleep, the lantern glowing warmly at the bow. Its light felt stronger now, steadier, carrying the songs, memories, and whispers it had gathered. But the sea ahead no longer shimmered with calm silver. The water darkened, turning a restless gray. The horizon twisted, shifting between shapes the eye could not hold onto, mountains, waves, shadows of cities, then nothing but endless sky. The traveler felt a shiver run down their spine. The lantern flickered, as if warning them. The sea of sleep had turned. A storm was coming. It began with the wind. At first a gentle sigh, then a howl. The air thickened, carrying voices, not like the songs of the last island, but whispers that hissed and overlapped, each one sharp and restless. The traveler strained to listen. You are not enough. You will fail. They will see through you. The whispers came from everywhere, above, below, inside their own chest. The traveler gripped the boat's edge, heart pounding. These were not the dreams of children or forgotten lullabies. These were the raw, heavy fears people buried inside themselves, the words they never dared to say aloud. The storm of unspoken fears. The waves rose, black and trembling. The boat lurched violently, carried upward, then dropped with a bone-deep crash. Lightning tore across the sky, not white but violet, splitting open the clouds. Each flash illuminated shapes within the storm, shadowed figures, tall and faceless, their mouths open wide as though screaming silently. The traveler held the lantern higher. Its glow trembled, shrinking in the presence of so much darkness. The shadows pressed closer, their faceless forms leaning in. With every crash of thunder, the whispers grew louder, faster, sharper, until they merged into one terrible roar. You will never escape. The travelers' hands shook. Their breath caught. A part of them wanted to cover their ears, to let go of the lantern, to sink into the storm and disappear. But then, through the noise, they felt it. The lantern pulsed faintly in their hand, beating like a heart. The warmth spread up their arm, into their chest, steadying their breath. And beneath the storm's roar, another sound whispered, a lullaby. The very same one they had heard on the shore of forgotten songs. Hush, little one, the night is kind. The traveler closed their eyes, clutched the lantern, and began to hum. At first, their voice was thin, drowned by the storm. The shadows only pressed closer, their faceless mouths stretching wider. But the traveler did not stop. They hummed louder, steadier, letting the memory of every dream they had guided fill their chest, the child who crossed the silver bridge, the mother who embraced her daughter, the crystal lullaby that shone like a heartbeat. The lantern flared, sending a beam of gold across the storm. The shadows shrieked without sound, recoiling. The whispers cracked, faltered, and began to scatter like birds. The boat steadied. The storm raged still, but its power no longer crushed the traveler. The faceless figures surged one last time, rising as tall as mountains, their forms flickering with jagged lines of lightning. But the travelers stood tall in the boat, lantern raised high, and their voice, stronger now, rose into the storm. The stars will watch, the tide will keep. Drift away in gentle sleep. The final line of the lullaby cut through the chaos like a blade of light. The faceless figures shattered into mist. The thunder broke apart into silence. The storm dissolved, leaving only a faint drizzle that shimmered like falling starlight. The sea of sleep grew calm again. The traveler lowered the lantern, breathing heavily. Its glow was steady now, brighter than ever. The warmth filled them, not only from the voices of others, but from something within themselves, a strength they had not realized they carried. For the first time since their voyage began, the traveler smiled. They had faced the storm. They had heard the voices of doubt and fear, and yet they had not fallen. The sea stretched out once more, endless and shimmering, and on the horizon, the faint glow of another island began to appear. The journey was not over. But the traveler knew now, the light they carried was stronger than the shadows. The sea was still after the storm, as if holding its breath. The traveler leaned against the boat's side, letting the cool mist brush their cheeks. The lantern glowed gently, its flame steady now, no longer trembling. For a while, only silence accompanied them, no whispers, no shadows, no crashing waves. Just the slow, soothing rhythm of the tide. Then, far ahead, a warm glow began to rise. It was not the pale light of the moon, nor the sharp glint of stars. This was different, gentler, golden, as if the horizon itself was blooming. The traveler's heart stirred. The sea of sleep was guiding them to the garden of eternal dawn. The boat drifted toward a shore lined with blossoms that shimmered in hues no waking eye could name, petals that were soft like dawnlight, each one glowing as though holding a tiny sunrise within. The traveler stepped onto the sand, which was warm beneath their feet, as though kissed by morning after endless night. Before them stretched an endless garden, trees with leaves that glowed with a tender blush, vines heavy with fruits that pulsed softly like lanterns, and flowers that opened and closed as though breathing. Above, the sky held both moon and sun, balancing in perfect harmony, painting everything with a gentle twilight gold. The traveler had never seen beauty so tender, so healing. As they wandered deeper into the garden, the air shifted. It carried not voices, but sighs, soft, contented, like the exhale of someone finally resting after years of burden. The flowers bent slightly toward the traveler, their petals brushing against their arms as though in greeting. And then the traveler saw them. Dreamers. They lay among the blossoms, some curled beneath glowing trees, others resting on beds of grass that shone like silver thread. Their faces were calm, serene. Some smiled faintly, as if caught in the sweetest part of a dream. The traveler watched as one blossom unfurled beside a sleeping dreamer. A tiny wisp of light rose from the flower and drifted into the dreamer's chest, glowing there before fading gently. The garden was feeding them, nurturing the weary hearts of those who had carried too much. The traveler sat by a stream that wound through the garden. Its waters glowed with liquid dawn, warm to the touch, carrying reflections of both sun and moon. They cupped their hands and drank. The water tasted of childhood mornings, of fresh beginnings, of the moment just before the world wakes. With every sip, The ache in their chests softened. The weight of the storm, the whispers, the shadows, the fear, melted away, leaving only calm. For the first time, the traveler felt not only safe, but whole. As they rested, an old figure approached. They were not like the faceless shadows of the storm, nor like the dreamers who lay sleeping. This figure was both luminous and fragile, cloaked in robes that shifted between sunrise gold and twilight blue. Their face was lined with kindness, eyes carrying both sorrow and peace. "Welcome, traveler," the figure said, voice soft as morning breeze. "You have crossed the storm." The traveler bowed their head slightly, unsure what to say. "You carry a lantern," the figure continued. "And within it, the voices of many dreams. But now you must learn this, a dream cannot only be guided through darkness. It must also be nourished with light." They reached out a hand, and a blossom bloomed instantly at their fingertips, glowing gently before dissolving into the traveler's chest. Warmth spread through them again, but this time it was gentler, not a blaze, but a sunrise. "Do you know what this place is?" the figure asked. The traveler shook their head. "This is where dreams are healed," the figure said. The storm of fear tears at them, the shadows of doubt try to unmake them. But here, in the garden of eternal dawn, they are restored. Just as you are. The traveler looked at their lantern. It glowed more softly now, less like fire, more like warning. The flame did not flicker with struggle, it pulsed steadily, as if in rhythm with their own heart. They realized, this was not just about carrying others' light. They had their own as well. Night and day swirled above, blending into one endless dawn. The traveler closed their eyes, lying back on the grass that cradled them like a bed. For a moment, they let go of the lantern, resting it beside them. The earth hummed softly beneath their body, and the blossoms breathed around them. Time no longer mattered. The garden asked nothing of them, only that they rest. And so the traveler drifted, not into restless dreams, but into a sleep that healed. When they woke, the figure was gone. But the garden still glowed. The blossoms swayed gently in the breeze, the stream still shimmered, and the dreamers still lay in peace. The traveler stood, picking up their lantern once more. It shone brighter than ever, but not with a heavy fire. Instead, it radiated with the calm of dawn, as if carrying the memory of the garden within its flame. On the horizon, the sea waited. Another island shimmered faintly in the distance. The traveler stepped once more into the boat, lantern in hand, carrying with them the warmth of the garden of eternal dawn. The sea welcomed them with a gentle tide, carrying them forward. But the horizon this time was not glowing with blossoms or shimmering waves. Instead, a faint silhouette rose, a towering structure, taller than the lighthouse, darker, its shape blurred as though it was woven from mist itself. The air grew still. The water grew deep. And somewhere in the silence, the traveler heard a faint ticking, like the beating of an enormous clock hidden beneath the sea. As the boat drew closer, the shape grew sharper. It was a tower, vast and winding, built of stone that seemed older than time itself. Vines crept up its walls, but they were not ordinary vines, they glittered with fragments of broken clocks, shattered hourglasses, and cracked mirrors. At the entrance stood a figure draped in robes of shifting silver and black, their face hidden beneath a hood. The only thing visible was the faint glow of their eyes, one reflecting sunrise, the other reflecting midnight. The traveler stepped onto the shore, lantern glowing softly. "Welcome," the figure said, their voice layered, as though many ages spoke at once. "You have carried the flame through storm and dawn. But now you must face what most dreamers fear, the tomorrows they lost." The traveler frowned. "Tomorrows they lost?" The figure nodded. "Every dreamer carries with them paths they never walked, promises they left behind, chances they never took. Those tomorrows do not vanish. They gather here, in my tower. Forgotten, but never gone." The traveler's chest tightened. Their own life shimmered in their mind, roads not taken, words unspoken, hopes abandoned. "Why bring me here?" they asked. The figure's eyes glowed brighter. "Because before you can guide others into dreams, you must first face your own." The keeper of forgotten tomorrows raised a hand, and the massive doors of the tower groaned open. Inside was no ordinary hall, it was a labyrinth of floating stairways, shifting walls, and countless doors. Each door pulsed faintly with light, some bright, some dim. "These," the keeper said, "are the tomorrows left behind. Yours. And those of others who wandered too long." The traveler hesitated, then stepped forward. Their lantern flickered, casting a path through the shifting halls. They came upon the first door. It was carved with patterns that seemed familiar. The traveler touched it, and suddenly the world rippled, pulling them into a memory that was not a memory, but a dream of what might have been. They stood in a bustling city street. Familiar faces hurried past them, faces they once knew, lives they might have lived. In this tomorrow, they had chosen ambition above all else. A life of success, wealth, applause. Yet when the traveler looked closer, the eyes of that version of themselves were hollow. Surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. The traveler's chest ached. They reached out to that other self, but the vision crumbled like sand. When they opened their eyes, they were back in the tower. The keeper's voice echoed, "A tomorrow taken is not always a tomorrow meant to be. Remember this." The traveler pressed on. Door after door showed them visions. A tomorrow where they had turned away from their calling, living in safety but never in truth. A tomorrow where they had loved boldly, only to lose everything in grief. A tomorrow where they had never left the shore at all, still waiting, still wondering. Each vision filled them with both longing and sorrow. Finally, they reached the last door. Unlike the others, this one was not glowing. It was dark, almost invisible, as if it did not wish to be found. The traveler touched it. The world shifted. They stood in a quiet meadow, beneath a vast open sky. And there, seated on the grass, was a version of themselves older, gentler, eyes filled not with regret, but peace. This self looked at them and smiled. "You came," the older self said. The traveler's throat tightened. "Who are you?" "I am the tomorrow you still carry," the older self said. "The one not yet lost." The traveler knelt down, lantern flickering between them. "But I thought this was a place of forgotten futures." The older self reached out, touching the lantern. Its flame pulsed warmly. "Not all futures are forgotten. Some are waiting. Waiting for you to step into them. Tears stung the travelers' eyes. For the first time, they felt not haunted by the roads they hadn't taken, but freed. They didn't have to mourn every lost tomorrow. They only had to honor the one still calling them. The vision faded. Back in the tower, the keeper stood silently, their eyes glowing. "You have seen what dreamers fear most," the keeper said. "Not darkness. Not storms. But the weight of what could have been." The traveler nodded, holding the lantern close. Its flame burned steady, but deeper now, no longer fragile, but grounded, strong. The keeper bowed slightly. "You are ready. The last path awaits." The tower doors opened once more, revealing the sea. The travelers stepped back into their boat, lantern glowing not just with light, but with the steady warmth of chosen purpose. Far ahead, rising from the horizon, the lighthouse finally came into view. The end of their journey, and the beginning of something greater. The boat glided across the still waters, each ripple carrying the traveler closer to the towering light ahead. The lighthouse stood vast and unwavering, rising higher than any storm, brighter than any dawn they had seen. Its beacon pulsed with a glow not of fire, but of countless dreams interwoven, golden, silver, violet, shifting like the aurora. The traveler's lantern flickered, its flame drawn toward the beacon as though it knew this was where it belonged. As the boat touched shore, the traveler stepped onto a path of stone. Each step felt heavy, not with fear, but with the weight of the journey, the faces they had met, the lessons they had carried, the tomorrows they had faced. The lighthouse doors opened with a soft hum, as though welcoming them home. Inside was not darkness, but an endless spiral of light winding upward. Walls glimmered with fragments of dreams, visions of children chasing fireflies, lovers reaching across time, the elderly smiling at moments long past. Every dream, every soul, shimmered here. The traveler climbed, lantern held steady. With each step, the flame within it pulsed stronger, until it was no longer just a light, but a living presence, warm, guiding, eternal. At last, they reached the top. The chamber was vast, open to the sky. In its center stood the beacon, a great prism of light suspended between sea and stars. It shimmered with every color of existence, casting its glow far across the dream sea. Waiting beside it was a figure, the same woman who had first lit the traveler's lantern in the beginning. Her eyes were filled with both joy and sorrow. "You have carried the flame well," she said softly. "Through storms, dawn, and forgotten tomorrows. Do you know now why you were chosen?" The traveler held the lantern close. "To guide others." She smiled. "Yes. But not just through dreams. To remind them that they are not lost, even when they wander. To be the light they cannot find alone." The traveler hesitated. "And? What becomes of me?" Her hand touched theirs, guiding the lantern toward the great prism. "You become what you always were meant to be." The traveler placed the lantern into the heart of the beacon. At once, the prism blazed. A radiant pulse spread across the sea, across the skies, across every dreamer's heart. The flame within the lantern did not extinguish, it expanded, merging with the great light, becoming part of something vast and eternal. The traveler felt themselves dissolve and yet become whole. They were no longer just one wanderer. They were the lighthouse itself. Far below, Dreamers sailing lost across the sea now saw the beacon shining. Some carried burdens, some carried longing, some carried fear, but all turned toward the light. And the traveler, now keeper of the lighthouse, felt them. Every dreamer, every story, every soul finding its way. The storms no longer frightened them. The forgotten tomorrows no longer haunted them. For they had become the light that never wavered. At the edge of the sea, dawn broke, not just for the dreamers, but for the traveler too. The Lighthouse of Dreams stood eternal, its beacon shining across endless horizons, carrying one truth in every ray. No dreamer is ever truly alone.